This passage represents exactly 3/5 of the whole work from which it is extracted. It consists of 3 13-measure periods, labeled 1 through 3. The remainder of the piece, not shown here, consists of 2 additional 13-measure periods. Each period is divided into 4 small sections, each with a duration of 13 quarter notes. Each of these smaller 13-beat sections uses a consistent rotation of 3 contrasting types of musical material labeled X, Y, and Z. In the first period, X is a harmonic dyad. In the second period, X expands to a 4-note chord. In the third period, X is a melody in 8th notes. In the first and second periods, Y is a 4-note chord. In the third period, Y shrinks to a harmonic dyad. In all 3 periods, Z is a dissonant tremolo. Over the course of each period, X shrinks in number of attacks. Y expands, and Z stays the same. For example, if we track X through the first period, we hear first 7 chords, then 5 chords, then 3 chords, and finally a single chord. As X wanes, Y waxes. First a single chord, then 3 chords, then 5 chords, then 7 chords. This careful formal arrangement gives the impression of something static, rigid, and mechanical, but the effect of the music is quite different. It's playful, capricious, bursting with energy. That has to do, in part, with the sheer level of activity, mostly 8th notes and rapid tremolos, but it also reflects shifting contrasts and affinities in the pitch organization. X, Y, and Z give an initial impression of maximum distinctness and contrast. X is a repeated major second, played in staccato eighth notes over a crescendo. Y is a single four-note chord played forte. Z is a minor second played in a soft tremolo. But there are audible points of affinity among them. X and Y share a common tone, D. Y contains a major second, like X. Y also contains two minor seconds, like Z. As the piece progresses, these sorts of subtle affinities are emphasized and the musical materials become more like each other to the extent of changing places. X is always first, Y second, and Z third, but their internal characters adapt to each other and take on new identities. In the first period, X wanes while Y waxes, but all three elements are fixed in pitch. In the second period, Z continues unchanged, but both X and Y are derived from the original Y. Most significantly, X is now the exact pitch transposition of what Y was. X has become Y. What is more, the dyad DE that comprised the original X now in the second period reappears within the temporal span of Y. In these ways, the identities of X and Y become enmeshed. In the third period, the transformations continue. X is now a melody derived from the combination of X and Y found in the second period. Y consists entirely of the dyad DE, which was X in the first period. Y has become X. Z is still a tremolo, but shifted in register and with an additional note added. Z was B and C. Now it is A, B flat, and B, a chromatic trichord that recalls the chromatic trichord embedded in the original Y. Z has become Y. Amid the fragmentation and the evident contrast among the elements, they are nonetheless bound together in a network of affinities and transformations. Common tones connect the disparate units. DE in the initial X returns as the terminal Y. The tritone A flat D at the bottom of the four-note chord in the initial Y returns at the bottom of the contrasting four-note chord in the subsequent Y. The perfect fifth DA in the second X also returns in the subsequent Y. AB at the top of the second Y returns in the final statement of Z. The note B flat in the final X, the last of the 12 notes to appear in the passage, returns doubled at the octave at the top of the final Z. In all these ways, the contrasting components are linked together. A more subtle affinity among the contrasting components involves the perfect fourth or fifth. In the first Y, G up to D is a perfect fifth. In the second X, which as previously discussed is a transposition of the initial Y, D up to A is a perfect fifth. In the second Y, although the chord has changed, that same D up to A is present again as a perfect fifth. In the final X, there are two perfect intervals. B flat up to F is a perfect fifth, and G up to C is a perfect fourth. Between the components, the same type of interval, the perfect fourth or fifth, is used as a means of connection. Perfect fourths and fifths within the units are reconceived as T5 and T7 between the units, as transpositions that connect semitones, whole tones, and an entire four-note chord. The dyad DE in the initial X is related by T7 to AB in the second Y. The exact same connection is found between the final Y and the final Z. The dyad F# G in the initial Y is related by T5 to BC in the initial Z, and thus the second Z as well. That same F# G in the initial Y is also related by T7 to C# D in the second X. And that same C# D in the second X is itself related by T7 to A flat A in the second Y. Additionally, the entire tetrachord in the initial Y is related by T7 to the entire tetrachord of the second X. And while not a transposition between components, the same relationship is found within the final X. B flat C is related by T7 to FG. We began by emphasizing the contrasts among X, Y, and Z. Now we have come to understand that networks of common tones and transpositions bind the units together.